All right, guys. Well, welcome and thank you so much for joining the second part of our 2024 end of year celebration. It's been another big year for TCT, and we are very excited to be able to share some of the impacts that we've had over the past year and some of the exciting stories from the trail and give you a little sneak peek as to what's coming ahead. So if you haven't met me before, my name's Megan. I'm the director of the Trans-Caucasian Trail Association, coordinating and supporting work across all three countries of the amazing South Caucasus. And it's been a pretty wild ride getting this whole thing off the ground, to be honest. This is a particularly fun event for me because I've been really personally involved in building out the trail network over the last 4 years. I through hiked across Armenia back in 2021 and then have been really involved in mapping out several of the Georgia sections, as well as supporting our team in Azerbaijan in the incredible mapping and trail building work that they're doing, along with the rest of our local team who's here. And as many of you probably know, we're working on developing a 3,000 kilometer trail network across the Caucasus. That is no small feat, and it's been a lot of fun. Right now, we've got about 1,700 kilometers of that is open and hikeable. But as you'll hear, there is still a very wide range of trail conditions. So we've got some veteran hikers here to really tell you what to expect and to be able to hear it from their own experience. We opened the first through hiking routes across Armenia and Georgia back in 2022, and we've continued to improve that route ever since, largely based on feedback from hikers and some of the volunteer mapping efforts that several folks on this call and in our audience have contributed to. And we're actively expanding the route across Georgia and Azerbaijan that connects the Black Sea to the Caspian Sea, with some very exciting developments coming in the next year. So stay tuned. So today, I'm really excited to be joined by four of our amazing community members who have spent a lot of time on the TCT, coming from different parts of the world and having different approaches, different sorts of experiences on the trail. And I think they'll do a really wonderful job of telling you all what it's actually like to be out there. So the goal for today is we're going to share some stories. They'll give you their firsthand experience and both of what it's like to hike as well as to volunteer on the trail. And we're going to try to leave a fair amount of time for Q&A so that anyone who's thinking about coming out will have opportunity to ask questions of any of our lovely folks on the call. And yeah, this is an especially salient event for us right now, because if anyone's following the news in the Caucasus, you'll know that here in Tbilisi, Georgia, where I live, we are dealing with a rapidly deteriorating political situation, which is not a new thing to have experienced over years and years working and living in the Caucasus. And it is impacting our work, it is impacting our personal lives. But one of the ways that we often deal with these types of situations and ground ourselves in this work is really anchoring ourselves in the beauty and the joy that is found in the mountains here and the wonderful experiences we've all had being out, connecting with folks in the villages, experiencing the biodiversity. And a lot of that lives beyond the capital cities, beyond the headlines. And that's what we're so excited to share with you and to highlight. It's one of the ways that we raise awareness of this region and why we think it's so important. And sharing our love of the mountains is one of the key ways that we bring lots of different types of people together to make a difference for nature and for the communities that the trail goes through. So with all that said, I am really happy that you guys are here with us today. I can't wait to hear what you think of our hikers' presentations and their trail experiences. And thank you so much for being part of the TCT community and showing up and supporting us. So with that, I think I'm going to hand it off to Harry to kick us off talking about his 2023 through hike. Fun fact about Harry, he's also an avid mapper. He's a current avid volunteer for the very cool NGO Map Action, and he created a extremely cool and useful interactive map of the TCT, which can be found on his website, which I will drop the link to because it's very cool and you should all check it out. So Harry,
Hi.
I'm going to start your slides and feel free to introduce yourself and take it away.
Hi, thank you, Megan, for that lovely introduction, for inviting me. And hello, everybody else. It's nice to see you and to read some of your introductions in the chat. Um, so, uh, my name's Harry, and I'm going to be sharing a story from the Armenian TCT. So, Megan, could we go to the next slide, please? So, just a little about myself, which might be helpful if for those of you considering hiking the trail, just to get a sense of how experienced I was as a hiker. So I've definitely been a keen hiker for about 10 years, but I'd never done what I would call a through hike before I came to the Caucasus. But I was experienced in planning routes and hiking off trail. So I was a confident hiker. But I had a natural break in my career. So this is me during my PhD. I studied geophysics. I had a natural break at the end of that, and I felt I wanted to try something big and do a through hike. So that's why I decided to go um, to the Caucasus. And I'd heard about the Caucasus. I guess I always think of a big influence was a book I read, A Hero of Our Time, which is set in the Caucasus. And then I heard about this new trail, and the idea of hiking a trail that was a little bit less established really appealed to me. And it was fantastic. I ended up hiking the whole north-south route, as I'll tell you on the next slide. And it sort of permanently, I guess, changed me. I shifted my career to making maps. This is one I made. I hope there aren't too many map makers in the chat because I slapped this together yesterday in about an hour. So it's a little bit rough. But so what you can see in the red line is the north-south route, which starts in southern Armenia on the border with Iran. It goes all the way up through Armenia, through from the south of Georgia to the north to the Greater Caucasus, and then it bends around to the Black Sea in the west. I also showed a red line in northeast Georgia because I had a bit of spare time at the end. So one takeaway is don't be in a rush like I was, because in the end I had loads of spare time at the end, and I could have spent more time on my journey down to southern Armenia in some of the cool places. So although I hiked the whole TCT, the whole north-south route, that is, Megan asked me to focus on my experiences in Armenia. I think somebody else is talking about Georgia. So yeah, I will. So I started out in Megri, in southern Armenia, on the border with Iran, and yeah, I was pretty soon in this forest that you can see in the next slide, and it was going pretty well. That section out of Megri is amazing. There's fantastic wildlife and extraordinary landscapes. So it was starting to feel like quite an adventure. And one of the takeaways I want you to get from my short story is that compared to other hikes I've done in other areas, hiking the TCT can really feel like an adventure from a novel or even from a fantasy story, and maybe you'll see why. So I was walking and I came down to this what felt like a haunted hermitage, which you can see the video here of
Oh, that's cool.
bats flying around. So I came to this hermitage, which is in a deep canyon, and at the top of the canyon there's an amazing monastery, and the monks used to live down in the hermitage, and they would walk every day up to the monastery and to transport food and stuff. But now the hermitage is crumbling away. And as I got in, I thought it was completely empty. So I was exploring around, and I thought there was a storm coming, and I thought, wow, maybe I could stay here in one of these stone rooms, the monks' cells, and then I'll be sheltered from the storm. But then after I saw those bats, I heard some sort of low chanting, and I realized I wasn't on my own in this hermitage. And then I saw across the courtyard, there was a man sitting in one of the monks' cells. So I tentatively went over to him, and in broken Russian, which was the language I had learned to help me with the TCT, I introduced myself and I asked if I could stay in the monastery, or the hermitage rather, and he said, no, only monks are allowed to stay here, but you can camp outside. But since the storm was coming, I thought there were better options. So, Megan, could I have the next slide, please? So in that same deep valley, there are several caves which were well marked on OpenStreetMap, thanks to the efforts of the TCT team. And I actually, oh, can people see my slides? Yes, I see some nods. Okay, I'm going to carry on. So I ended up staying in this cave, and I didn't have to pitch my tent or everything or anything, and I avoided the thunderstorm. Although I read later that going into a cave during a thunderstorm is perhaps not the best idea. So please bear that in mind if you go through this section of the TCT. I think if the cave is deep enough, it is safe, but if you're near the mouth of a cave, it can actually be dangerous. So yeah, that's a really short story, but this all happened in the space of one afternoon on the TCT. So I went to an abandoned hermitage. I met a monk who still lived there, and then ended up sleeping in a cave. And this is just in the space of a few hours. So, and that was not an unusually eventful day. Things are always happening when you walk on the TCT, and I wanted to try and get at why hiking the TCT feels like such an adventure, and I think I have two main reasons. So the first one, I think, if we go to the next slide, the first one is that Armenia, also Georgia, but especially the portions of Armenia near the TCT, have a really long history, and it's still alive. It's not sort of in the past. The monasteries that have been actively used for 1,000 years are still being used. And I will say, all the other monks I met were super friendly, including Gabriel, brother Gabriel on the left here, who let me stay in a monk's cell in a different monastery. But it really feels very exciting to be constantly walking amongst this landscape that is so storied. And then the second main reason I feel like hiking the TCT is such an adventure is on the next slide. And that is that the people of the Caucasus, and that definitely includes Armenian people, are just unbelievably friendly, hospitable, and sort of interested in you. Their first question will usually be, how can I help? Their second question will probably be, are you married? Do you have children? But I lost track of the number of times I was offered food, I was offered accommodation, I sat down for drinks with some shepherds. And so this is one of my favorite examples, which happened in the Gegem Highlands, which is a lot of hikers' favorite region of the Armenian TCT. It's this high region that is too high to be really permanently inhabited. It gets very cold and snowy in the winter. But in the summer, all these shepherds come and they live as nomads, and they graze their flocks, and they are extremely hospitable. And so in the picture on the left, I was inside their tent, and they offered me dinner, and I slept in the tent. And then in the morning, I stepped out of the door on the right past this sheepdog. And the next couple of slides are just a couple of the views from the Gegems. So this is a view from Mount Azdahak, and you can see all the volcanic cones that pop out of this high grassy landscape. And then the next view is little bit further north, coming down towards Lake Sevan. You can see another volcanic cone, some sheep, some horses, and the lake itself. I think that's pretty much all I wanted to try and convey in this short 10-minute speech. But this slide is just to convey that there are so many facets to the TCT that I didn't have time to talk about. So on the left, there's community going across. If you have questions about route finding or wildlife or food or wildflowers or dogs, I mean, best to ask Megan about dogs. but I have advice about the less friendly dogs, of which there are some. The community is very friendly and helpful. I'm proud to be part of it, and any questions you have will get quickly answered. So that's all I have time for. Please stay in touch. I'll put my contact details in the chat. And thanks for listening.
That was awesome, Harry. Thank you so much for sharing. And yes, I do have stories about the more friendly version of the trail dogs, one of which lives with me now. But there's certainly diversity that you meet on the trail. Fully in agreement about the Gegams being not only one of my personal favorite sections, but a consistent highlight that we hear among a lot of hikers. And those, the hospitality encounters that you highlighted, I think are just define the route so much. So thank you for sharing. We got a quick question from Paul here before we move on. What time of year did you hike?
I started on May 15th. I'm that age where most of my friends are getting married, so I had to fit my trip between two weddings. So I had exactly 3 months between May 15th and June, July, August, September 15th. And I wanted to start early in the season, and that's why I started in the south, because it's less snowy in the south. So you don't encounter any passes until later on that are potentially still snowed over. And yeah, it worked out well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Harry. Really appreciate it. And he'll be around for more questions at the end. So next we are going to, once I figure out how to, there we go, unpin, jump across a closed border in a way that you cannot do on foot. But here at the TCT, we do like to, bring folks together from across those closed borders over to Alexandra, who's going to tell us about her hike in Azerbaijan through Guba and Gusar. Fun fact about Alexandra, I know about her hike because we actually met each other, bumping into each other on the trail. And it was still a very new section. I think, she and Nezreen and I, who were hiking at the time, were equally surprised to meet another person out there, especially meeting a solo female hiker like Alexandra, who you don't encounter too often in the Caucasus. So yeah, Alexandra, feel free to take it away and can't wait to hear about your journey.
Sure. So I'll go ahead and get this in full screen. It's all good?
Looks good.
Perfect. Okay. So as Megan said, I'm Alexandra. I hiked along the TCT in summer of 2023. And I was hiking in all three countries, although I'll focus on Azerbaijan specifically here. This was my first time doing anything this big in terms of hiking by myself. Certainly my first time in Azerbaijan, I had no idea what to expect.
Okay.
But I was truly blown away. And I think one of the things that has always stuck with me since then is that Azerbaijan has incredible mountains. And that's honestly one of the things I remember it for. I did the trek that is from Guba to Busar, and I started in the village of Kinilik. In total, this trek took me 3 days and it covered 66 kilometers, and I did it in July, so peak summer season. Nevertheless, I really didn't see any other hikers out here, so it was really nice for me because the selfish part of me is like, I just want all these mountains to myself. But it was just the landscapes are truly, truly breathtaking. And Hinalik is definitely one of those very Instagrammable villages. As you can see, it kind of sits on this hill that just juts out in the middle. And yeah, this is where I started. This is the trail that leads out of the village. It was a bit foggy that morning, raining a little bit, but nothing too severe at all. And I really want to let the pictures speak for themselves. I didn't know how else to do this presentation, but it's just truly beautiful and it's so green, and I wasn't expecting this at all. And it's very peaceful, it's very calm and liberating. And I just loved hiking here. And this is another example of kind of those hills that are just rolling with all these like green pastures and all the trees and all the rocky faces as well. So at the end of my first day, I stayed in the village of Gris. And kind of as Harry said, the people were very hospitable, certainly something that I encountered in all three countries. In Gris, I stayed with this gentleman and his family. So it was him, his sister, her husband, and their mother. They had me stay in their house. They set me up as well. They made me dinner as well as breakfast. And the gentleman's mother had hand knitted these Azerbaijani slippers that I still wear every single day. And they do have a hole in the bottom because it's been a year and a half now almost. But I will sew them back together because they are adorable and it's just such a core memory for me. So on the right, you can also see there was this little dog that was hiking for me for part of my second day, one of those friendly dogs. And yeah, I'll touch on maybe the not so friendly dogs in this slide. These are all sheep, they're not dogs. But certainly during the summer, this is shepherding season, so you're going to see a lot of sheep. And where the sheep are, you have the shepherd dogs who are very protective of their sheep. So I had one incident here where I was trying to avoid the shepherd's hut because I had known about, the dogs, but they still saw me and there were like 10 dogs that just like ran down the side of the hill and they were all barking and they formed a circle around me. And one thing I learned from that gentleman in Grizz in this case was just to stay still, not to like run or trigger them, and just wait for the shepherd to come back. So I just sat there, the dogs were barking. And after about like 5 or 10 minutes, the shepherd came by. He was kind of hitting the dogs with his stick like they were stupid. Um, but yeah, anytime if you meet a shepherd, they're super kind and they'll definitely guide you through the area if they have dogs. In some instances, like Harry, they invite you over into their hut. So that was certainly an interesting experience for me. And here's just another picture of kind of how vast the mountains feel. This is approaching Lhasa. I think this was the area where I kind of ran into Megan actually. Um, and yeah, it's just truly beautiful. And one of the things I like about Azerbaijan in comparison to Georgia or Armenia is that in some sections like this, where the trail isn't as developed, it feels very untouched. And you really get to soak in the mountains as they are just completely raw. Um, and going through sections like this that are unmarked, that have no trail, where you're just crossing terrain, it isn't quite as intimidating as it sounds, because the TCT does have GPS files. So really all you have to do is download it into a hiking GPS that goes offline, and it's like Google Maps for hiking. It's you just follow that route, and it's pretty straightforward. So the last village that I stayed in was Lhasa. This is the view from the top when you approach it. And also on the right, I ran into some young guys who were on their horses in the region, and we didn't have a single word in common, but they saw me with my backpack and they kind of implied if I wanted to horseback ride with them, and I was like, sure. So we ended up horseback riding for 6 hours that day. And it was really nice to also see the mountains from that perspective as well. And we had a great time. We did this big loop to another village called Yergikek, and then back to Lhasa, where we finished the day with some kebab and some beer. And the whole time we didn't have any words in common, but it was still great, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. I wanted to show this picture because I've never seen rocks like this anywhere. And it was very like all of a sudden, this is right as you leave Lhasa. I feel like it's something unique to this area. I hadn't seen it anywhere else in Azerbaijan, Georgia, or Armenia, but I thought it was really cool. And this is another picture. Here you can kind of see the trail in this area. When there was the trail, that's kind of what it existed in a lot of parts, is kind of this 4x4 track. And this is Yergikek, the village that we leaped through. I believe it's one of the highest altitude villages in Azerbaijan. So this is the whole village. It's very small. But to my knowledge, there's also a guest house here. People need to stay overnight. So in terms of my takeaways, kind of in conclusion of my hiking, I've included a picture of the route that I did on the right from my hiking GPS. But yeah, for those of you who haven't used hiking GPSs, I guess you really just follow your route. What I did was the pink one. And so in that way, it's very straightforward, as I said. On the left, I have a picture of a meal that my guest house in Lhasa prepared for me. It was very kind of them. We have some tolma, which is traditional Azerbaijani food, the pepper stuffed with ground meat, as well as these cherries that were to die for. And I did eat the whole bowl. But I think one of the things I learned hiking was actually the importance of food. I hadn't really taken this into account when I was planning everything. And for me, this became more of an issue in Georgia than Azerbaijan, because I was living off of lobiani, which is just like a flatbread stuffed with beans, and my hemoglobin levels completely crashed. I had to go to the hospital. So I do recommend making sure that you are eating well and that you get enough calories, enough carbs, protein, fat when you're hiking. Not just on the TCT, but in general, that was the main thing that I learned and the main advice I would give to anyone. Um, yeah, food and nutrition is very important. But besides that hiccup in Georgia, I truly, truly loved this journey. It was incredible for me. It was right after I graduated, so I was just like being free and on my own. And I'm hoping to come back again next summer and do some more parts of this trail. But yeah.
Amazing, Alexandra. Thank you so much. Speaking of food, I often tell prospective hikers that, in my opinion, one of the marks of a truly successful hike in the Caucasus is that you finish multiple weeks of hiking and you have managed to gain weight by the amount of delicious Caucasian food that people are often piling in front of you. It can be a lot of fun out there, but it is important to keep those nutritional levels high. So thanks for sharing that so much. We had some comments in the chat about just how different the landscapes look. And I think that's one of the really cool things that we aim to highlight with showing the whole trail like this is how many different types of ecosystems the trail goes through and the different sorts of experiences you can have along the way. So thank you for sharing your experience with us and can't wait to see you back on more of the trail. So next up, we are going to finish our little through hiking roundup with a bit about Georgia. So I'm very excited to have Lea Geibel here with us today. She is a prolific longtime through hiker who was actually one of the very first people to through hike the TCT way back before it was even a real trail in I think 2018. So really helping kind of chart that course for it and has stayed engaged with the progress ever since. This year, she came back to hike some more of the new Georgian section, and she's going to tell you about that experience and what it was like seeing the trail evolve. So quick fun facts about Lea. She has a tiny, adorable hiking dog named Emmy, and she also makes her own ultralight camping gear, which I think is super cool. So Lea, thanks for joining, and feel free to take it away.
Hi, Megan. Yeah, thank you so much for the introduction. Actually, yeah, Tiny Dog is with me here today, but she's asleep, so she's not joining. Yes, so let me share my screen. I hope that works. And yeah, actually, Megan is totally right. So yeah, I'm gonna try to talk mostly about the section I hiked this year in northern Georgia. But of course, for me, it's quite interesting because, yeah, I hiked the early stage of the trail in, Megan is right, it was 2018 or 2017, and I totally messed it up. But yeah, to show on the map, actually, can you see my screen? Does it work right?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, sorry. Yeah, then 1 second. Hold on, let's try again. Okay. This should work though, no?
Yeah, it's loading.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So yeah, now here's the slides that come with what I'm talking about. Yes, so I'll be talking about my hike through to Georgia, but I think it's also quite interesting to see the comparison of how far this trail has come since I've been in the Caucasus for my first visit, which was in 2018, as Megan said correctly, not in 2017. To show on a map, yeah, in 2017 I had the stupid idea to hike. No, 2018 I had a stupid idea to hike a completely unfinished and non-existent at that time trail through all of Armenia and back then the south of Georgia, to the Black Sea in Batumi. And it was really amazing for me to see all the development that has happened on the trail since then. And I've really been wanting to go back and hike some of the sections that I didn't get to do last time and see, how far the trail has come on site. That's why this summer I took 4 weeks to go back and start again in Batumi, where I had left off last time. But instead of going to the Black Sea directly, I headed north to go to hike to the Greater Caucasus and ideally end up at the Black Sea again. Yeah. So my route took me through Bojomi National Park, which is in the basically center of Georgia. It's beautiful, not super high elevation, about 2,000 meters above sea level. I don't know what that's in foot for all you non-metric system people. But it's really green. It's super densely forested, and it's quite wild. There's not too many hiking trails there, apart from a few popular routes. But it's really nice section. Very humid, very hot though. And then the route continues going north directly to the lower lands. So from the higher parts of the southern Caucasus, you go to the lower sections. And then, once you reach the north of Georgia, it brings you back up to the mountains of Racha, which is very, very beautiful. And it was very impressive for me for the first time after having hiked, I think it was almost 1,300 kilometers or something in Georgia, in the south, in the Caucasus, in the south. It was really nice to, for the first time, actually get to see the higher Caucasus and the high mountains along the Russian border. So that was quite a special moment for me. And then once I hit the border at the north of Georgia, I hiked along the main Caucasus, and there actually entered the more popular sections, or I'd say the most developed sections of the Transcaucasian Trail, which is from Mestia to Ushkuli, or the other way around as I hiked, which is like a lovely 3 to 4 day trek that actually a lot of people do, and it's popular for good reason. So that was nice, really, from hiking completely alone for like a really long time on this trail and not seeing any other hikers to entering sections that are more developed where there's more people out there. I got to hike across Saneti in the north of Georgia, which is really, really beautiful, landscape-wise, but also the Svanetching culture is really, really unique, really special. The architecture is quite special. The food is special. There's a local language that's being spoken that's quite unique. And then the route continues along the north of Georgia, and eventually, as it hits Abkhazia, or it doesn't hit Abkhazia, but as it approaches Abkhazia, it turns back down further south into Samegrelo National Park, which is another fairly remote part of the country. There's barely any tracks there. It's really difficult to access. I think there's not many people going there. There's a few points that have hiking destinations, but hiking across the route that the TCT is currently picking it's quite a remote part of the trail. And then from there, hitting the lowland and then ideally ending up at the Black Sea. So this is the main route I took. Beautiful landscape, very, very epic. But I think what's quite interesting to look at is maybe some similarities between my two routes that I hiked, to also understand the characteristics of the route a little bit better. One thing that was similar between the two hikes, which was the epic landscapes, both in Armenia in the south, but also in the north of Georgia. So this is in the north of Georgia, and this is from a hike in 2018 to Armenia. That's the Gekka Mountains. I feel like you've probably seen some of those pictures already today. Very different, very diverse, as Megan said, landscapes, but equally beautiful in its own way. Another great similarity that happens across the whole Caucasus is there's delicious food and Caucasian hospitality everywhere. So this was for my first hike in 2018. Getting invited by families along the trail for feasts with a lot of food and not being allowed to leave until I really couldn't eat anymore. And then continuing to hike, and the same thing happens again 5 kilometers further with the next village. And then I have to explain them again that I just spent about 3 hours eating with the family, and I really can't eat anymore. But then they don't understand that, and I still have to, eat again. But it's always delicious food and it's really great and it's really nice encounters. So yeah, that didn't change between my 2018 hike and my 2024 hike from last year. Being invited to guest houses or being guests at guest houses, eating, enjoying delicious food. This was just what the host called a small breakfast, what you see on the table here. So yeah, food really is amazing. Also some similarities that did change in some parts and others didn't was there are still sections where there's a bit of bushwhacking on the TCT. Left picture is from 2018, right one is from 2024. So yeah, that's still a thing, reality in some sections of the Transcaucasian Trail, although not in all of the sections. Oh, you can't read that very well. But I think one big similarity that's also quite obvious is that I was consuming the equivalent of my body weight in ice cream, both 2017 and 2024. There's so much ice cream on the trail. I think there's barely been any, oh, there's a few days, but every time you pass even the tiniest village, it has 5 houses, it has a tiny village store, and there's always ice cream. And yeah, usually there's more than one ice creams being consumed by the hikers. But there also are some differences between the two routes that I think are quite interesting, or the two times that I visited were quite interesting, and it really show how far the trail has come. So when I started planning for the route in 2018, there really weren't any or barely any resources. I was looking at the old Soviet maps. I was looking at a lot of satellite images to try to like patch together my route. And then in some sections, this was the idea of route ahead. So I knew and I somehow need to get across these mountains, but I have no idea how. Whereas like this year, I had all this amazing, beautiful route data that the TCT had put together with route information, like here's a potential camp spot, there's water sources, there's a village, there's, take a left here on this turn. So all this information, and it was really, amazing to like see this development. It was such a contrast. It made hiking really like, so enjoyable, so nice. So yeah, props to TCT, TCTA, and all the work you've been doing over the years to really make the difference from coming from this to this on the right side. Also, for me personally, my hiking team has changed. In 2017, I was alone with my teddy bear. And then this year, I actually had the chance to be joined by my friend Salome, which might be on the call today here. Not sure if she is. Hi, Salome. So that was really nice. I was still 1 week alone this year because I still wanted to, just solo hike for a little bit, but then the rest of the trail I got to share with Salome, and that really, made the whole experience so nice to be able to share it with someone that's not just my teddy bear. And to touch on that, one thing that actually really I noticed has changed over the years is my personal safety. I have to say, I did as the back then really, really young solo woman hiking the trail that did not yet exist. And not many locals really understanding what I was doing there. And I always had to explain that I try to walk across the country. And, it was really complicated to like bring that across and no one had heard of the trail because it wasn't really a thing back then. So that it sometimes, led to some quite uncomfortable situations where I just, didn't really feel safe. And I have to say, in 2024, that was a whole different story. It has different factors to it. One is I was a bit older. The trail is a lot more developed, at least in a section that I had hiked this year. So, it was just more known to people. Like, if someone comes across with a backpack, it's obviously a hiker and it's fine. And I don't have to explain the whole concept of what I'm doing. But I think the biggest factor was also that I got to hike with my friend Salome, and that just made the whole thing a lot more relaxed, not having to worry about that too much. But also nice to really see how like the perception of the trail has changed in the local communities to make it more of a safe experience over the years. And one major difference on my hikes between 2017 and 2024 was in 2017, I actually did make it to the Black Sea at the end. In 2024, we did not make it to the Black Sea as intended because we both got food poisoning and had to end the week short of the Black Sea. So that's a good reason to go back for a third time to hike more and actually make it to the Black Sea again. And I think the biggest difference that I haven't really touched on is the biggest development, which is really like the trail itself. When I hiked in my first time, I think I had about 80 kilometers of actually developed Transcaucasian Trail that I walked across out of 1,300. Um, and now when I got to hike, it was so nice. I think in the south there were still a few sections where there were not too many markings, but once I got to the region of Raja, there were markers on the route. Even when the route was like super built out yet, there were still markers, there were trail signs, and it just felt so nice I felt like I was really on a trail that, is like exists, that is there, and that's all thanks to the work of the TCTA. And that was, a really, really nice experience to see the difference and how far, the project has come since then. That was it from my side. Thank you for your attention.
That's fantastic, Lea. Thank you so much. Not just for sharing your experience, but for coming back in the first place. I mean, how cool is it to see that evolve and change over the years? And can't wait to host you for the next through hike in 2026. So, all right. So to wrap things up, we are going to pivot a little bit, and we're actually inviting one of our dear friends and former TCT volunteer, Matt Schulz, to share about his experience building the trail, since a logical extension of a lot of people's interest in hiking then becomes, okay, this sounds cool, but it's very clearly still in development. So how can I help? And what is that experience like? And before Matt gets into it, we are planning on running international volunteer programs again next year. We've been doing this pretty much every year except 2020 since 2016. It's been a lot of fun. It's how I first got involved in the trail, and since ended up basically making it my life. Many other folks who've gotten involved in the trail have gotten involved in a similar way, and it's a great way to just see that firsthand and chip in and meet people from the region and have a whole lot of fun. But I'll let Matt tell you all about that. Fun facts about him: he's actually learning Azerbaijani and got to know the TCT team after he was living in Azerbaijan for a year on a Fulbright and organized an English language camp for kids where he met my colleague Gunay, who's here with us today, and learns about the TCT. So he's since become a volunteer and has become really active in helping us grow our outreach networks and promote the volunteer program, among many other things. So, Matt, thanks for being here. Take it away.
Yes, thank you, Megan. All right, let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, can everyone see that? All right, great. Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Matt Schulz. I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois, in the United States, and I'm currently living in Washington, D.C., where I work in international education. So I participated in the International Summer Trail Building Camp in August of this year, so pretty recently, and that was in Zesko, Georgia. I saw someone in the chat earlier mention that they did the trail building program in Zesko in 2021. So pretty
I'm so
amazing.
excited to see what has changed. Please go ahead. Yes.
Yeah. No, but it's super amazing to see, and just a testament to like TCT's, dedication that this program has been going for multiple years, and that people, we share these experiences even though we've never met. And great. So yeah, so super excited to share with all of you today. Okay, so this is day one of the experience, and this is in Kutaisi. We've got the rest of the international volunteers representing some different countries. We got Canada, Denmark, Wales, England, and then we've got some of the Georgia TCT team as well. And so this was a funny moment. I felt kind of like a mom on a family vacation. I was like, come on, guys, let's all take a picture. And everyone was kind of like, okay, we all just met last night, but it was worth it to be a little corny because I knew I wanted to remember this moment. And then you can't really tell behind my super cool sunglasses, but I was pretty nervous at this moment. I'd never done this was going to be the longest I'd ever camped, like in a tent. and the most remote I'd ever done it. So I had originally I'd always loved nature and hiking as a kid, but this year is really when I'd gotten more into it. I was living in Colombia in South America, and the region I was in, hiking was very popular. So I started with just some day hikes with some friends, and then I signed up for a couple like multi-day guided treks. Really loved those, and so I was looking for kind of the next challenge. And yeah, as Megan mentioned, through Gunai, I heard about TCT, and I was like, "This is perfect. Sign me up." But I won't lie, I was still, a little nervous. Didn't know exactly what to expect. And so let's go to this next one. So trail building, yes. So you heard from three hikers, and now you'll hear from me as a trail builder. So one of my friends works, one of my hometown friends works construction, building roads in Chicago. And when I told him I was going to go across the world to build trails, he was so confused. He was like, Matt, if you want to build roads, like you can come do it with me and they'll even pay you. And I was like, no, no, no. Like, this is, what's the point? But you might be asking yourself too, why build the trail when you can just go hike it, right? And I think the two reasons for that for me was I wanted like a challenge and to build some skills. And then I wanted to like build a connection with both the place and the other people that I was going to share this experience with. And okay, and so, I wanted to talk a little bit also about kind of the day to day of trail building and my experience with it. So, as I mentioned, didn't like was just getting back into kind of hiking, didn't have any experience trail building. And so that was one of the things I was nervous about. I was like, was this going to be like a crazy, physically hard thing? I don't know how to trail build. How am I going to learn? But shout out especially to Papuna, who I don't know if he's on the call today, but he was our crew leader, and he did a great job of showing us kind of how to build the trail, showing us how to use the different tools, stressing safety and making sure we were all safe while we were using these sharp and heavy tools. And it really was a great experience. I think lots of people on the call, you may have heard of like other trail building programs. And so now after having done this, I feel confident that I can, continue in my like trail building journey and maybe do some of those other programs. And so I think that's a big perk, especially being able to come in with no experience. And so over the 8 days that we were in Zesco, we walked we hiked like an hour to get to the site, and then we were building this trail. So it would be kind of leave early in the morning, build the trail, stop for a delicious lunch. Food tastes much better after you've been swinging a McLeod for a couple hours. And then we would, hike down in the afternoon. And yeah, ultimately, I would say if you've not built a trail before, if you're, in shape to go hiking, you can do trail building as well. I think it's, you don't, it won't be so overwhelming. You can kind of take it at your own pace. And of course, if you do the TCT program, you'll be doing it with a team of people that can help you. All right. Okay, and then besides the trail building, there's some really awesome parts of this like summer trail building experience. And so the first one for me was just being able to disconnect and be in nature. So here you can see a picture of my tent, and then another one of my dirty boots. But yeah, so it was just great. I think this is something that everyone should do, be able to spend like a extended period of time in nature, disconnect, no cell service, probably no surprise up in Zesco. So you have time to just take it slower and experience the beautiful nature of Georgia. But I'm a pretty social guy, so I can only disconnect and enjoy solitude for so long. And that's another advantage of the TCT trail building program, is that you are doing it with other people. So we did a lot of activities. Here you can see some volleyball. This is me, I'm taking a break. I was playing lots of volleyball, and now I'm relaxing. And then we were playing some chess. Here's a picture of us, sharing a lunch. And we also had, singing and dancing and different activities. Uh,
Oops, I think we lost Matt. That's a bit of a bummer. I'm sure he'll jump back on shortly. But oh, there he is.
yeah, I think I lost internet for a second, but I'm
No
back.
worries. He's back. Yeah, go for it. Oh my God.
Let me read our screen. Hello, hello. Can you see and hear? Okay, good. Okay, so this is our crew, a big selfie, and we've got our worst enemy and our best friend in Zesco. And anyone in the chat, they might recognize who our, who our best friend is, and guesses.
Sugri.
Just shout it out or put it in the chat. Yeah, there you go, Tom. Sugri on the left is our dog, and despite the smell, Sugri was one of our best friends, spending a lot of time with us at camp, especially when we were eating. Sugri certainly was around for all meal times. And then our worst enemy on the other side is a bull eating out of the compost hole. And so the bulls, anyone who's been in Zesco in 2024 will know, they will come and terrorize the camp. And so we have to chase them away. But sometimes they sneak by and they don't get chased away. So lots of fun with the camp and lots of great friendships made. And then this, I see, yeah, Tom is here today. And this is a picture of Tom and Irma and learning some Georgian. So I think this is another like huge advantage of TCT's like summer trail building camp is that especially Georgia, you can go as a normal tourist, you can see Tbilisi, you can see other places. But it's really hard to break out of that, and not just in Georgia, but across the world. It's hard to break out of that like tourist bubble, right? And to actually like build connections with locals. But the great thing about being in Zesco for 8 days with no cell service is that the locals have no choice but to talk to you. And so you can really take advantage of that to learn about a country, learn about a culture, try your best to learn the language. And so that was like for me a highlight. As Megan mentioned, I'm studying Azerbaijani as well, and so really interested in languages and learning about the culture. And this was my first time in Georgia, so big shout out. And I'll share my favorite phrase that I learned in Zesco was "Tkpili," which I'm sorry to the Georgians in the chat if my pronunciation is bad. Still working on it, but it means like sweet dreams. And so while we were trying to learn things, every time you're leaving camp to go to bed, you would try to say sweet dreams. Yeah, and so that's another one. And then okay, this is the last slide. This is just a photo. What I wanted to close on was just a word about kind of the TCT community that I think everyone like joining this call today is like also a part of, but you can definitely become a part of through hiking the TCT or through doing one of these trail building camps. It's just really cool. Like, as I mentioned, I work in international education, so I'm always thinking about ways to like build community around like a shared educational experience. I think TCT, it's not exactly education as we would think about like a classroom or like you're studying something, but you're certainly learning about it. You're learning about the Caucasus. You're learning, in my case, about trail building and about nature. And this shared experience, you have people that you share it with. Maybe if you're hiking in a group or if you're trail building in a group, and then you have people that you can connect with, like many of you on the call today that I haven't met, but that share this interest in the Caucasus, in the TCT, and in the nature in the mountains. So I think that's the coolest part, and that's why I'm so passionate about TCT and have remained involved after my trail building experience. So thanks everyone for listening. And I'll pass it back to you, Megan.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Matt. Despite some technical glitches, which, we often are out in some remote places, so we're no strangers to internet dropping out. Really appreciate you taking the time to share your experience with us.
Might not qualify as a remote place, but still the internet issues. So yeah, thanks for the patience, everyone.
No, that was really cool to see. And I don't know if anyone wasn't paying attention to the chat. It's been blowing up with some beautiful photos from Sonia, a 2021 volunteer who's sharing her own experience of the same site. And it's really, really cool to look back, 3 years now, and see how far that's come since then. And the fact that we've had now at this point, so many TCT community members contribute to the same trail. And yes, that is a bit of a forever trail project, but when it is actually done, I think it's going to be the best opening ceremony that we'll ever have. And we'll have dozens of volunteers from around the world coming together to officially hike the new trail from Zesklota Febi. So thanks for chipping in and sharing. So just a few words to wrap up. Trails are never done, absolutely. It is an ongoing process. I think the hikers we've had on today have done a really great job of highlighting, what that process looks like to contribute to it, to experience it as the trail is in development and watching how conditions change over that time. So we really hope that if you're excited about contributing to projects like the TCT, or if you're excited about experiencing one of what will be one of the world's best through hikes, I think in the future, experiencing that in its pretty raw new form, we hope we'll see you out on the trail. We've got a lot of trail resources on our website that are all free and open access. We run information forums and sessions for potential through hikers every year, and we're planning on doing that again next year. And we're always here to have a chat and engage with people, answer questions, talk more about the trail. And the whole point of creating this thing is to see people out there enjoying it. So we hope you'll get out there. We hope we'll hear from you. And I will say, if you are moved by what we're doing, if you've spent time on the trail or you're thinking about coming out, please consider supporting our work. We've got an ongoing fundraising campaign through the end of the year now that's going to support our trail building efforts in 2025. And we're really excited about what we've got coming down the line. So I'll drop that link in the chat along with the links to our trail resources. And we hope we'll see you out on the trail next summer. With that, I think we'll wrap up since we're at time. Happy to stay on for a few minutes and answer some more questions if anyone has burning things they want to ask in person. We're here. We're happy to chat. We're not going anywhere. But please feel free to also reach out over email. The hikers are dropping their contact info in the chat. I know they're happy to answer questions, and so are we. So thanks so much for being here.
So yeah, I just wrote this in the chat. You'll have to forgive me. My Wi-Fi just completely died. So I'm on this call with my phone hotspotting. So it's just glitching in and out. If anyone wants to hear, I'm just totally going to back you up, Matt, on everything you said. Maybe just also from a female perspective, if there's any females that are interested. If you have any questions about the volunteering experience, I popped my Instagram in the chat and I'm happy to share more if there's any logisticals or whatever questions you might have. It's one of the best things I did. So I'm obviously always going to say, just do it, whatever you will ask, but I have more info to that if you'd like to know.
Thanks, Sonia. That's awesome.
Because yeah, maybe one of the last words that Matt has already mentioned, so have you, Meg, but it's totally true. It kind of builds a community, even though I haven't seen you all. If Matt was going to ring me up tomorrow and said, I need a place to stay, I will open my house in 3 seconds. Because he's done that too. You know, he's been in the remote place and you kind of like, it has to take a type of person to do that. And I'm still in contact with some of my crew back then, and it's been the best. So just even, you know, again, if you're thinking maybe, make it a yes. You will thank me later.
That's so cool. Yeah, fully agree. Watching this community grow has been an amazing part. And I love so much how you end up with people from such different backgrounds, such different experience levels, all coming together around a shared enjoyment of being outside and getting their hands dirty in the dirt and building something that hopefully is going to last a really long time. So with that, I think we'll wrap up. There's contact info in the chat. I'll send an email with the link to the recording and contact info of all the presenters today in case you have specific questions that you'd like to reach out to them directly about. And we're here to help. So thanks so much. Thanks for being part of the TCT community, and we're looking forward to see you out there.